like right before leaving, touching the door handle, looks back at me and goes, "Don't you ever come back to a job like this. I heard you talking to some people, seeking advice, seeking for a career, but don't you ever come back to this career. I want to advise you." And I was like, wow.
In an encouraging way, like you're meant for more than this kind of thing.
No.
Davy, thank you for being on. Welcome back to another episode of Moving the Mountain, a creative leadership podcast for entrepreneurs. Here with a good friend of mine, Davy Dasilva. We've known each other for quite some time now.
I'll probably say since the 2012 days.
Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Really?
Remember 2012? Everyone thought the world was gonna end. Since those days,
Really?
We've known each other, and then as the years gone by, we've gotten closer, and our circles have gotten closer and closer.
Yeah. I feel like it's probably the last 2 years that become closer. You started coming to Legacy Church that I attend. Yeah, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about what you do, some of the things that you do, and kind of wanted to highlight some of the growth that I've seen in you. Maybe you could kind of talk about that, what kind of inspired that. So I know you went to a leadership school, and then you lead some ministries at your church. But outside of that, last year, probably around this time, maybe a little bit before COVID, you had entered a new position.
Yep.
In a sales role, and it seems and you had a mentor, another good friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, Tunde.
Hola, Tunde Unding, bo.
Great guy.
Was waiting for the moment to say his name.
Hoping to have him on the podcast maybe one day soon. Tunde, if you're out there,
absolutely.
Scheduled your time to be on this, and we'll shout out Tunde Sales Realty.
Shout outs to them. Shout outs to Tunde.
That man is a great mentor.
Great friend.
Better friend, and we hope to have him here soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know he was kind of helping you through that transition as someone who had been in sales. And probably over the past year, it kind of seemed like you really, learned a lot. And you kind of hustled, I know they sent you off to HubSpot training.
Yeah, they did.
You took that over. You really kind of capitalized on that. And now you're kind of leading your department over at your software company. And you've pretty much kind of doubled in salary from where you were in just a very short amount of time. So why don't we start there? What do you feel what did you have to put into that? And what was the changeover from, maybe going from, a starter job, and we should clarify, you're in your early 20s. How old are you? 25?
26.
26.
That was pretty good though. That was a really good guess.
I appreciate that.
That was a pretty good guess. Yeah, it's been a lot of growth, honestly. The journey has been long, not easy. I wouldn't say I lead the whole thing, but I definitely help my boss in co-leading the whole department. But what's crazy is just when I look at it, obviously the financial numbers, if we're talking before I got the job, my salary has probably tripled.
Wow.
Or over that.
And just probably a year, right? Or just over a year?
Yeah, just over a year, a year and a half. And before that, I would say I always felt myself as a pillar and a leader in the church. And I never felt that way outside of church in any way, shape, or form. So I think it was either 2019, during prayer and fasting, I started writing down my prayers. I asked God, I'm why was I a pillar or why am I a pillar in the church? Not in any prideful way, just I'm serving in the church. I want to be here. I want to be a pillar. I want to be a mentor. I want to bring something to the table. But why? What gave me that confidence before? Because before I didn't have that. And I realized, it's because I had mentors in the church. Other men and women who were pillars in the church were surrounding me and teaching me and sitting down with me to help me, grow in that area and show me what it's like to be done. And I was like, man, and God, you've given this to me for the past, almost a decade. But I'm but I need this also outside the church. I need mentors that will show me how to grow in terms of a career, in terms of how to be a pillar at a job. And before that, I probably lost like consecutively, I would say 5 jobs in a row. And like,
Jeez.
obviously, I'm a no excuse guy, but here are some excuses. But honestly though, for some of them, like it felt like God didn't want me to be there, type of thing. And I know that sounds corny, but like I'll never forget for the last job, like someone looking at me, like my boss looking at me and going, like she walked me to my locker. I grabbed my stuff, and she like right before leaving, it was like a scene from a movie. Like right before leaving, touching the door handle, looks back at me and goes, "Don't you ever come back to a job like this. I heard you talking to some people, seeking advice, seeking for a career, but don't you ever come back to this career. I want to advise you." And I was like, wow.
In an encouraging way, like you're meant for more than this kind of thing.
No, not at all. Like it was pretty rough.
Wow.
And she was a cool lady, like a jazz type of, her hair was cut short, you know what I mean? Like wore turtlenecks the whole time. Like she was a cool lady, but I'm not gonna lie, in that moment I was like, dang, you I mean, you fired the heck out of me right now, but that was pretty cool. Like, let's forget all these semantic type of things. But wow, you touching that door handle, looking back at me on the side, telling me you should never come back in here. It was literally like a scene from a movie, and I'll never forget that moment.
Did you do something? Did she dislike you that much?
She
She didn't even want you not there, but in that.
No, she did. It's not like she hated me. Like I wouldn't say that she hated me, but like she definitely heard me talking to people that were veterans in that job, because you had a potential to make a career at that job, and there was this guy that moved from New York there, and he was really cool. We both like sneakers and rap and everything, and that's how our conversation started. And then it started to talk about like, oh man, you should get a career in here. Like, I'm paying for this, I'm paying for that. I got a family. I'm just starting to grow my family too, me and my wife. And she would overhear that. And then when they finally let me go, she just like, I guess that came to her mind. And she told me like, yeah, man, don't you dare even try this out. Don't chase this for a career.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think she said that?
I think it's because I was trash. Honestly, like that job, I remember in the middle of it, like I tried so hard, but it was just like, it wasn't the job for me. And like, even though in like a face-to-face value, you're being mad rude, and like, I'm just trying here. But then at the end, like I see that was God telling me like, no, this is a no-no. And to give context to that, like I'm in a relationship. I realize the person I'm in a relationship with, I want to get married. I want to get a ring. And this is when I first started thinking this stuff. And then this blow happens.
Yeah.
And so that was a pretty low moment. And then from there, it was like, I got another job at a school, which I really loved. Like I loved working with those kids. Shout outs to the learning community. Loved them. But I knew it wasn't a job that was going to like pay for my bills, let alone pay for this ring I was saving up for. So while I was there was an opportunity for a career, a job that I think was going to pay me around like $30K or something like that, maybe 35. I think it was $30K. And the reason why I'm saying these numbers, because again, it just added context. And then my other job, I think Tunde posted on a story, hey, my job's hiring for a business development role. Never developed any business before in my whole life. But I have developed like people around me, I have led teams, and that was it. So I was like, and my wife actually sent it to me, said, hey, hit up Tunde, gave me his number and everything. And what's crazy is that my wife thought about sending it to someone else.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that wild? So I was like, wow, you're going to shoot both of us in the foot there. But she ended up obviously sending it to me and everything, hit up Tunde. Never really talked to Tunde. And, I mean, we just clicked. And it was like, Tunde was giving me advice, but I was used to like how my mentors would give me advice. Like they would just give me advice, but they wouldn't hold my hand.
Yeah.
Type of thing. And that's what Tunde was doing. Hey man, you got to do this on your resume. I would do that on my resume, and then I would email it to him, and I'll try to do it, if not the day of, the week of. You know what I mean? And again, this is coming from a kid throughout high school who was procrastinating, who was lazy. You know what I mean? But it was like a switch turned on because I was like, I got to get married, or I want to get married. You know what I mean? And I just kept praying. Like, I remember one of the prayers I would pray was, God, I know you're a provider, but can you partner with me in providing for Jenny? I don't know if that was okay to say my wife's name out there.
Jeez.
But shout outs to my wife, Jenny, my baby cakes. Yeah, my baby cakes.
Every time.
Sounds really smooth saying it too in these headphones. My baby cakes, hey. So, and again, I'm working at the school, and I love working with kids, and I'm in youth ministry to this day. But I was like, man, I love working with these kids, and the kids at the school and I had a great bond, and this opportunity comes, and I'm looking at this opportunity where I have no experience in, where I have no love for, and it's $10,000 more to start off. But I'm like, God, man, I'll sacrifice again to work with kids, and not just that, but I'm like, I just don't know this field. I don't know anything about sales. I don't know anything about. Tunde was like, this is a SaaS role. I said, SaaS? I thought he almost said the A word. I was like, hey, man. And it's just an acronym that means software as a service, and that's what I was selling. Yeah. I had no idea what any of these acronyms were or anything like that. And I remember Tunde being like, it's going to be a lot of work. You ever see those movies where like coaches and they first get their team, and like I like remember the Titans and the coaches like look at each other like, we got a lot of work to do. You know what I mean? It was kind of like that. And he mentored me through getting all these interviews and everything. And meanwhile, at the same time, like I always tell people this, like you go somewhere and you want to figure out that it's the right place for you, you're going to have to realize and start sensing the grace of God over it. If the grace of God is over a new place that you're stepping into or going to, you're going to feel it because everything starts falling into place that doesn't make sense that's falling into place. And if you feel like, hey, I don't know if I should be here, you start seeing like God's grace get removed from there. And you're like, everything feels tough. Everything's not working out. Why is it like this? Even though I'm trying my best, Right. And it was happening at the school. Not that my job was in jeopardy at the school. It was like when it came to me in this position, it went from Davy, it's like no question you're the guy to get this position, to I don't know, man. I don't know if this position's even going to be available. I don't even know if the interview's even going to happen. And then when it came to the job I had no experience in, it was like, even though there was already 20 candidates, even though the person on the day that I interviewed, the person before me was a Harvard graduate, even though it came down to me and another person that had 10 years of experience over me, it was like everyone up to the VP and the CEO liked me. And it was like, I've never experienced grace like that. And it was crazy at the school. Like I got frustrated. I quit the job, and I have this engagement ring in my hands, and I quit a job because I'm like, God, I just trust you, man. Like, and I would never advise someone, if you're going to ask the love of your life to marry you, like not to like quit your job like the 2 weeks before you ask her. But that's what I did. And I remember like some of my leaders like, you got to take a step of faith. And that was a step of faith I took. I'm like, hey, as much as I love working with these kids, I know this job won't pay for the bills. I know I won't be able to provide for the love of my life, And I asked my wife to marry me when I had no job, and she knew that I had no job. And she was like, she said yes, obviously. And I think I asked her on a Sunday, and that very next Friday, I got the job that I have now. And it literally just worked like that. And it was fast-tracked. I mean, normally, 3-4 interview type of positions take a couple months to get. This all happened in the span of a week or 2 weeks. It was nuts. I was like, wait, I got another interview tomorrow. I got another interview in 2 days. And I mean, I never talked to Tunde that much. All of a sudden, I was on the phone with him about, an hour or two every day. And he almost couldn't believe it, too. I mean, he was getting like a $2,000 bonus if I got hired.
Right. I remember that.
I didn't know that at the time, you know what I'm saying? Till I got the job. But, yeah, he couldn't believe it. It was really exciting, And he really coached me through that. And I'm very thankful for him for that, for spending the time that he didn't have to. I mean, $2,000 is, $2,000. But this man, spent a lot of time. That was more than $2,000 with me for sure.
Well, I think he saw a lot of potential too in you, and you're young, you're getting married, so I think he, probably sensed that and wanted to set you in the right direction. Because I remember him talking to me about it a little bit, right, and being frustrated at times, he's gotta, kind of working through those things,
Yep.
And
he's gotta want it was the thing that he would always say to me. You gotta want it, man. That used to just pierce my heart.
That's such a thing. I mean, and I remember he was so invested, and that's just how he gets, where he'll take it personally, he probably lost sleep over it. He probably had some days where he's he's upset and he's talking to me about it,
sure,
but and I don't think it was the 2K. I'm sure that helped, but it is frustrating, and I see that with seeing potential, right, and wanting people to kill it. It's there's so much more, he'd be doing so much more. And there's that balance of wanting to push, but that other person has to want it too. I think sometimes there's a disconnect, and especially when you're younger, you're coming into something, especially in smaller organizations where you don't see the opportunity, where you're just it's just a job, or it's just a dead end job, or I'm not gonna get recognized, or if I come in early, if I grind, if I have a good attitude.
Yep.
It's not going to matter. I'm still going to be making $11.50 an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
But, and it kind of depends on how big an organization is, but there's probably always someone that's going to be over you that is, seeing you. And I think if you that's the thing, if you like the job you're at, I think you got to like it too.
Yeah.
Because if you don't like it, you're probably not going to want to do all this. It's do you really want to grow into something that you don't like, or you're not passionate about?
Yeah.
It's growing in the wrong field or something. But yeah, I think you really gotta like it. And if you do, then it's just maybe those things come naturally, where it's I want to impress my boss, I want to have a good attitude, I want to be noticed, I want to work my way up. And everybody has different reasons. Marriage is probably one for you. It's just hey, I'm getting married, new realm of life here. I'm responsible for another human being.
Totally new realm of life.
I got bills. Yeah, and I get that too. You want to be a provider. You want to make sure your wife is protected, and be setting yourself up. So it's now your actions and for better or worse affect another person.
Yeah.
So all those things probably weigh into how you approach things. But sometimes you don't even see that when you're we all have blind spots, so it's maybe you don't even see that in the moment, and having a mentor, or even good friends, I feel Tunde is one of those kind of come along and kind of give you guidance, and I feel it's painful sometimes, where it's just
Tunde.
Yeah,
Tunde is very painful sometimes, man.
Things you be a little rough.
Things you be saying to me, I'm wow, man. But again, right? That 2000 is long gone, long spent.
Yeah.
He's still out here.
And the better investment too, I think, is seeing the fruit of your investment in someone's life. It's just in the trajectory he set you on, or helped set you on. Ultimately you had to do the work. He could only guide you. So I think, and I feel that's way more rewarding, where it's just you found someone at point A and you brought them to point B or C, and it's just
man, Tunde brought me all the way from, I don't even know, A to Z, man. It was crazy. It was crazy. I will say though, he doesn't work with me anymore. He has another, bigger and better things for him always. But what's crazy is that when we were in the office, we would sit right across from each other, just like this. And when I would get wins, it was when no one was looking, no one was in the office, he'll get it off from his desk and just put his hand on my shoulder and be there you go, man. That's who you wanted it. And like, I mean, now that he's not, the last time I got a raise, when I told him, my man almost cried. And he literally told me, like, you literally exceeded every expectation I had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mean, my expectations for myself were, exceeded as well. And honestly, I didn't love the job at first. You know, that kind of grew on me. You know, sales and everything. And when it goes back to like potential, like I think everyone has potential, right? But people always seek the potential. There's moments, right? But like people sometimes have moments where they don't see the potential in themselves, you know? Right. And then there's a lot of moments where people full of potential lack to see the potential in the opportunity or the moment. Right. And that's where the sadness comes in. You know what I mean? Where it's like, bro, you're so talented. How'd you miss it? I mean, but it's easier for people looking out, you know? But when you're in the moment and you're like, I got to provide, I'm getting married. How am I going to, and it's like, that's where you really have to pray and see God, you know? And, or if you're not a Christian, like just slow down. And still, if you're not a Christian, seek God. If you don't believe in him, there's a God out there, just seek him. And like, I mean, I challenge God too. Like, God, this is an opportunity. Is this an opportunity for you to partner with me in providing, you know? I want to partner with you, God. And I put it on him, you know what I mean? And I just put my head down and worked and just worked as hard as I prayed, honestly. And it was crazy is that, like, I'm so glad that I started writing down my prayers because those prayers from 2019, early 2019, wrote down X amount of dollars, X amount of time, a job that wouldn't have me taken away from the church or anything like that. Mentors in the job. I mean, my first interview was with the director of business development, partnerships, and alliances, which is a crazy full title to have. And he literally liked me so much in the first interview, which was like an hour long. And he was like, I'm going to mentor you. He literally said that to me. This guy isn't Christian, you know what I mean? And this guy never met me before in his life. And he literally said something that I've been praying about for the past 2 years.
Where was this?
This was at my job.
At your current job?
At my current job,
so it's like a second mentor?
Or my current boss, yeah. My current boss. He literally said that to me in the first interview that I had with him.
Wow.
And he literally was like, we're going to fast track you. There's a 3-interview process. You're going to make it the 3rd interview, trust me. And then after the first interview, it was calling Tunde this day. The next day, calling my soon-to-be boss. And they were both mentoring me and giving me advice.
Wow.
It was nuts.
Yeah, kind of going back to that point where it's just like, having someone invest in you, like that mentorship. And I feel like, vital. Seeing the fruits of that and you're someone who's been in ministry. And I feel like lately that's been one of the most rewarding things for me. And because what's nice about ministry too is like you take out that monetary factor too. Like you're there. And I think sometimes like these younger people, they don't know why they're serving, and they don't have like that perspective, right? But they want to get involved, at least get like a sense of community. And that's been one of the most rewarding things is like seeing someone come in to a team and maybe like lack confidence, and you're just teaching them like a very practical skill set, but you're like, hey, this is something that they could, in the real world, they could benefit from. This could become like a job for them. And I think there's aspects of working on a team too. You learn how to like communicate. You learn leadership skills, like working with people, which can, be challenging at times. But like just the real practical skill set, and also seeing people like gain that confidence. Like kind of maybe coming in like a little intimidated, like you came into a new field you didn't really know much about.
So shy. Didn't speak. Just took notes all the time.
Yeah, so it's just like you're totally green coming in, like new people, and then like kind of coming out of your shell, gaining confidence, which has been huge. Like, kind of seeing you too over the past year, like now about CRMs and you're teaching me about stuff and
stuff I never thought.
Yeah,
never thought.
So it's definitely cool to see.
And it's crazy. I didn't know how much I learned until like someone would get in a conversation with me and ask me. And then I would be talking, and I'd be like, dang, it's been like 10 minutes of me talking straight for 10 minutes. I'm like, whoa, what the heck? I learned a lot. Because, listen, when I say I was green, like, I don't know what the darkest forest green, you know what I mean? What's the color spectrum? What's the color before green? Like, I was that. I had this, like, little notebook that I just wrote acronyms and jargon, sales jargon. It literally, I remember in the beginning, it literally sounded like a different language. And I was like, what? SAS, pass, DAS? And I'm like, man. And I remember, like, this was, like, my main look, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and Tunde, my boss, was like, don't worry, Davy. Don't say anything, man. Just write it down. And just when, you know, we all shared, like, an office space, the three of us, and they were like, we'll close the door. Then you ask us, man. So it was a little notebook within my notebook. So I would have a huge notebook inside it, a tiny one. So no one would, like, notice that's what I was doing. And it's funny because, like, there's biblical principles in this whole story, looking back. But and it literally says in Proverbs, even the fool, if he's quiet, looks wise. And that's literally what it was. Even though I was literally not the wisest person in this field, like, it looked like, hey, this kid belongs. Look at him taking notes, looking like he belongs.
I think that's, like, so major. Like, even if you just show up and you're taking notes, it looks like you're paying attention, and you probably are. I mean, if you're engaging, like, sometimes I'm in meetings and nobody's taking notes. I feel like if you're already, like, not taking notes, like, for me, sometimes, like, when I'm, like, delegating or giving direction, I'm like, man, I can't believe people aren't writing this down, because that's later going to translate to, like, miscommunication and, like, hey, where is this? Oh, I forgot about that.
And people don't realize on the other side, that protects you.
Yeah.
You take notes, and then someone references something they never said before, you'd be like, hello, I take notes, dog. Where is it? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's literally, that's how it is. But, you know, with leading stuff in the church, and, like, there's always that one guy. It's like, hey, man, we've been saying for, like, months, years, and decades to, like, bring a notebook. There's always that one guy that's just like, nah, man, I'm here. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, yo, you need a notebook, man.
I think taking notes just shows that, like, hey, I'm into this thing. I'm serious about it. I'm here to learn. Like, I'm coming with, like, a humble attitude. Like, I'm here to learn. I want to see this thing succeed. And it sets the tone. And you'd be surprised how many people, like, in an organization just, like, could show up to a meeting without, like, a notebook. And it's like, oof. Like, it doesn't take that much to stand out.
It doesn't. And again, like, I learned this stuff in church, man, which is wild. I learned this in the church. Thank God. Thank God for Awakening Church. Yeah. Thank God for New Life. Like, it's crazy. All the leaders in my life, like, and I think that was because, too, some of them were also high-level people, either currently or once were at jobs before, like, you know, leaving it for the ministry. And so, like, they taught those principles in their church. And it literally played out. So I'll never forget, I was in a meeting, first time with the CEO of the company. And I was like, let me pick the seat that he's not going to sit next to. Man, ends up still sitting next to me. I'm like, dear God, why? I don't want him to see my notes about the jargon and this and all that stuff. And I literally have no idea what people are talking about in this meeting. Like, I used to tell Tunde back then, I'm like, so you guys will say, like, 5 sentences, and then maybe per sentence, 0.5 words I would understand. Because it was literally like that. And so I'm taking notes, and I'm sitting right next to him, sweating bullets. AC's blasting. And I'm still sweating bullets. And other people are there that don't have their notebooks, you know? And I forgot my laptop. That's why I was sweating. I forgot my laptop. And I just had my notebook. You know, it's crazy though. The CEO walked in, just had his notebook. And everyone else there that was taking notes or working on other things, because it was a presentation. I think there were some people in the room, not going to say names, you know, that didn't have their presentation ready and were just clicking away while other people were presenting. And I see the CEO just, like, keep looking and looking at the person presenting, then keep looking at the people tapping the keyboards and working on their stuff. And I literally heard him grunting, like, oh my God, this old French guy. He's a cool dude. Name's Didier, which is fire. And he kept looking, and I thought he was looking at me, and I'm like, oh my God, he knows I don't have my laptop. Or my second thought was, because I didn't understand what people were talking about, I was literally looking at his notes and copying them like I was cheating on a test. And so I thought he was like bothered by sitting next to me. And then all of a sudden he just goes, everyone just stop. Everyone just stop right now. You two that are on the laptop just typing away. Can you please stop? Can you see that there's people over here that are presenting? How rude of you. Where's your notebook, number one? And I was just like writing everything. I was like, don't ever bring a laptop. Bring a notebook always. And he actually referenced me. He's like, we got this new guy over here taking notes. Come on.
Wow.
And you guys are out here, been here for how long? And I'll just never forget that. And I was like, how did I bring my notebook in? All those ministry meetings, late night. Always had to bring a notebook. And that's what literally like made me stand out to the CEO at first. You know what I mean? Until I started eating. And then that's how he references me.
Yeah.
Every time, the first time he saw me eat, now he just references, Davy, you eat a lot, man. And I'm like, come on, bro. He literally was like, he saw me, it wasn't my fault, man. The first time we ate, it was like a fancy restaurant. Every time he comes in, he likes to go to a fancy restaurant, brings the sales team or some of the key people out. First time out, I look at the appetizer, didn't really understand anything except the word lobster. So I was like, let me get a lobster for an appetizer. It's not me paying, it's the CEO's dime. So, and they accidentally brought me 2 lobsters.
Jeez.
And I wasn't going to waste them. You know what I mean? I ate them. And the CEO took note because, again, this guy was sitting right next to me, man. I said, let me pick the seat that the CEO is not going to sit next to. The guy sits right next to me again. And he sees me eating, and he goes, wow, Davy, you eat more than Tunde. That was his first comment. His second comment was, Davy, we have a saying in my country. And he goes, it's better to have you as a neighbor than a son because you eat so dang much. And I was like, first of all, that's a fire saying. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Second of all, that's offensive. But I'm like, it's like you're paying for me, you know what I mean? And what's crazy too in that restaurant, there was like mirrors. So like when you're sitting down, like the mirror is like where you're, like if you're sitting up straight, you can see yourself all around on the walls. And I'm sitting and I can look at myself in the mirror. On my left side, there's the CEO of the company. And on my right side, there's the, hold on. Sorry. I'm very gassy
Maybe
today.
I shouldn't do the sparkling water.
Yeah, the sparkling water
It's
is
a little
like,
too gassy.
wow. Sorry, guys. All right. So on the left side is the CEO. And on the right side is the VP of sales of all of North America on my right. And I'm sitting in between these two guys. And I look at myself in the mirror. And I'm like, this is nuts. How am I sitting in between these two guys? I've never sat around people. You're burping too, huh?
I'm getting it.
Hey, man. I was like, I've never sat next to people this high up. And I thought back, I'm like 5 months ago, I remember like telling the kids, all right, you got to go back to your classrooms, emptying out the cafeteria, sitting on one of the tables at the cafeteria, like stressed, thinking to myself, how am I going to provide for the love of my life? Will this ever work out for me like it did for everyone else?
Yeah.
And then fast forward, and I'm sitting in between those two guys. And I'm like, this is crazy.
What would you say to someone like in your shoes, whether they're like transitioning from like, maybe that minimum wage job or like, that job you like starter out kind of thing, and maybe they're taking that next step into like, what would you say to that person? How do you get to that next level?
Simple, man. You got to find a mentor. You have to find that. You have to find exposure. The problem with people, right? Like, oh man, they got so much potential they don't know. It's like part of that is because they have zero exposure to greatness. And obviously like greatness in a general statement, like, but also like greatness in their specific niche that they're in. also love listening to podcasts. Great that I'm on one. One of the podcasts that I listen to, a leadership podcast. He says, "Hey man, like there's this there's this NBA player that comes to my church, and we were talking, and he says, man, there's this young kid on the team, and he's so good and doesn't even know it. And my hope and prayer is that he gets to go to the All-Star game so that he'll be on the team with LeBron or with Stephen Curry or with KD or with Kyrie or with all these big-name players so that he gets exposure and see how much he has to work on. Because he's the big fish in the little pond. But once he gets to the ocean and sees how small he is and sees how much he can not only work on himself, but see that greatness is attainable. You know what I mean? Like, it's different to see greatness from far away, but when you're next to it, you know, there's some people that are fearful of it, of the greatness, and be like, oh my God, you're not even human. And then there's those that are next to the greatness and go, how did you do that? How many hours did you spend on that? There's no way you can just do this ABC, and that's it. Like, there must have been a process. What was your process? What time did you get up in the morning? Whoa, hold on. You get up at this time? Okay, how long should I spend? Oh, you spend 3 hours? Then you take a break, and then you come back? You know? And that's the greatness that you got to be exposed to. So if you're working at a job and you feel like you're stuck in any way, like not just a job, if you feel like you're stuck in your marriage or feel like you're stuck like just growth-wise as a person, the number one thing you got to do is expose yourself to greatness, and you do that by a mentor. You know, there's almost no other way to do that. And it takes courage to go out there and seek one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And once you find that mentor in that specific niche, and no matter what niche it is, as long as you're passionate about it and you have one or two, man, you're going to grow so fast. You are. Because, like, again, the Bible says in Proverbs, there's wisdom in the midst of many counselors. You know, and people in this day and age, they tend to seek those many counselors, and they just want to just do it on their own. And then all of a sudden they have this long journey with all these mistakes and everything. But if you have a mentor, you skip about 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, it's huge. I remember meeting with a business consultant. He would say the same thing. He's like, you're a really hard worker. He's like, so you'll get to where you're going. He's like, but with a mentor, he's like, you'll get there with a lot less pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely.
Like, if you want to figure it out on your own, you can. But with someone who's already kind of traveled the road, like, hey, I can keep you from making all these mistakes. And I think a lot of people do want to do it on their own. Like, you know, which I guess is fine, but it can be a little bit more painful.
But when you have that person next to you coaching you, you know, they push you. You know what I mean? Because when you do it sometimes on your own, you can lack that consistency, which I was lacking. You know, I said it. You know, I wasn't consistent in high school. I wasn't, you know, that person that was a grinder in high school. You know, like I was a go-getter. Like, that wasn't me, you know, until I got exposed to many people that were like that. And then it started affecting me, you know what I mean? And like for you too, bro, I mean, how long have you been doing Move Mountains?
5 years.
Yeah. And it's just, you know, another leader that, you know, I look up to would say that, like, you know, any place I go to, anything that I'm doing, any endeavor that I'm really, or dream I'm going for, I got to give it at least 5 years to see where it goes, you know, but people only give it like 5 months, 5 days, you know, sometimes. And it's just like, bro, you didn't even try.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite Joe Rogan podcast episodes is with a dude named David Cho. It's such a great podcast, bro. But you know what's wild? I never listened to the full thing. It's almost 4 hours long. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's hard.
But they have like
some of them.
5 or 6 snippets, and if you just watch those highlights, that's like, you know, you basically listen to the whole thing. And each one is in between like 10 minutes to like 20 minutes.
It'd probably take me like a week to get through an episode of a Joe Rogan podcast because I'll just watch it in like 15-minute segments.
I mean, you know, it's crazy. Shout-outs to Joe. Shouts to Joe. Because, like, you may not agree with him, but dang, when you listen to one of his podcasts, or you may not even like the person that's on.
Mm.
It's very intriguing. Like
Yeah.
almost every episode.
Yeah. I feel like he's very like he's very much like, hey, I want to get to the bottom of it. I want, he doesn't agree with like either side. He's like, he seems somewhat unbiased. Great middleman and like very level-headed. He just doesn't go for whatever, it is on either side. And he'll call out his guests, or he'll like want to like fact check things like on the spot.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
So I feel like he gets discredited a little bit, but I really enjoy his stuff, like at least the ones I've seen.
Telling you, man, look up the David show. There's 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, when he has like long blonde hair. Do you know what that is?
No.
Bro, insane story. Who knows where your podcast will go, but if you can get him on, I mean, that's a great time.
Yeah.
This man was like traveled the world and everything, and this is like an Asian dude. And
is this the guy that was like a hitchhiker?
Mm-hmm.
And like he hitchhiked across like the whole country, and like he would have
when
people
he was
get in his
like
car,
18.
and right before they would like drop him off, they would start like saying all this crazy stuff.
Yep. That's the
It's
podcast
like,
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna kill you or something like that.
Yeah. Or like I killed someone.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. But his story, like, he did all that, but like he was also a graffiti artist. And Facebook, like in 2004, had like, they just had bought a huge building, empty walls, and they just needed to fill it. And they hired him, and they were gonna pay him $20,000 like per wall or something like that. And he was like, "Nah, just give me stock." And now his stock is worth like over 250 mil.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I think he works for Vice now. But like, my man, just like, if he's into something, he just like he dives into it.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy. He has crazy stories. It's nuts, bro. He's like, yeah, I spent like 3 to 5 months with the last hunter-gatherer tribe in Africa, and they're looking up like the last hunter-gatherer tribe on like Google and random pics of like, tribal African people.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, whoa, he does this multiple times on the episode. Whoa, stop right there, bro. Oh my God, I think I know that guy. And says like their name and everything. And it's like these random pictures of African people. And he's just like, oh, stop right there again, bro. I know that guy. I slept in a cave with him. It's like, what?
That's crazy.
It's nuts, bro. It's nuts.
I'll have to watch that one. Yeah, I see those clips. I've seen them on like TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like a 15-second, like 60-second like little clip, and it's just like it seems really intriguing.
Yeah, I've watched it. I watched the one where he talks about the hunter-gatherer tribe, like that little clip,
Mm-hmm.
and then the clip where he's talking about like hitchhiking. And one of the best ones is a clip from the same episode where he talks about when he was 18, he started hitchhiking throughout the world, and he was like in a farm in Israel, and he heard about like this lost dinosaur that could be in the Congo. And that clip is like 30 minutes long, but he goes on this crazy adventure to get there when he was like 18. And it was just like insane. The story, like he almost died of starvation, got lost in the jungle, like this lost tribe in the jungle like found him like and saved him. Like it was insane story, bro.
That's crazy.
Just because he read a book and said there might be a lost dinosaur in the Congo, and he went over there when he was 18. Like nuts, bro. Like who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that?
Did he have a family?
Yeah, he did. And he like wrote them like a last letter multiple times on that trip to the Congo, because he was like, I just don't know what's gonna happen to me. But he's like the closer I got to Africa and the country of the Congo and then the Congo jungle and all that, he's like the closer I got there, it was like people were like, yeah, there's a dinosaur out there. Yeah, yep. He's like the closer I got over there, he's like no one was saying there's no dinosaur. Everyone was saying, yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I saw it once. Yep. He's like even the tribe that found me almost dying. He's like even they were like, oh yeah, you want to go see it? We can show you. You just got to go through this. It was like lands and swamps that had like leeches and parasites that would go up your Johnson, your man parts. And he was like,
Jeez.
then he's like, I couldn't go through the lake that had the parasites that would go up there. He's like, I couldn't do it. So I was like, forget this dinosaur or whatever. But it's a crazy story to listen to, because like it's so abnormal, but it's like, man, I wonder how many people would do that if they saw like, again, like he was exposed, so he knew he could do that. You know what I mean? he knew he's like, oh, there's something that intrigues me. I can go to that country, and people are just stuck in their ways and are always here and are always, which isn't a bad thing, but it's like, they couldn't fathom that they could travel or that they could go somewhere or that they could do something or they could learn something new. And what really sparks that is when you start exposing yourself to greatness, or exposing yourself to new things in a healthy way, and healthy things. But that's the only way that will normalize it to you. Like, oh yeah, I could travel. Oh yeah, I could do that. Oh yeah, I could open up my business. I didn't think I could do something like that until I started working in the job that I was working in, and all the people around me have their own business, and I'm like, hey, my God, why don't I just start, maybe the end of this year, do my own business? Never had that hunger in me till like this year, you know what I mean? And it was because like I got exposed to people that were like, bro, there's no point of you living in America if you don't have your own business. And I was like, wow, you're right. I got to get my own business tax write-offs. Come on now. Got to experience that.
Yeah, it's I think there's something really attractive to that like unconventional life, and even hearing that story is just like, yeah, that's a cool way to live. I mean, to some degree,
To some degree.
Dying in the Congos, like, maybe not.
What's crazy? The other parts of that story, there was a kid that he met in Congo that was like there on his own on vacation, some German kid that was like groomed to be a politician. And like he met him and he was the only dude that spoke English in the area. And like, he was like, yeah, let's go together, bro. And they go together and like while they're starving and they get lost in the jungle, like they had a story that they would tell people like, I'm this German dude's bodyguard. But while they were in the jungle, the guy like got tapped and like thought the story was real. So he was like, bro, go get me water. Bro, go get me food. And like anytime that they were like, they had rations and water to save, dude would just chug it all, eat it all. And he'd be like, bro, that's my food. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's a crazy story, bro. It's a crazy story.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I got to watch that one. Getting back to your earlier point, being in that conference room when the CEO was there, what I was thinking is just like, I feel like the CEO, right, is taking it so seriously, It's like, and I feel that like whoever's kind of like leading whatever they're doing, to them, it's the most serious thing, and I feel like sometimes people can kind of come in and they're not treating it like this with the same amount of like, my boss is taking it this seriously, maybe you're like down here. And maybe like CEOs like have to do that, like the leader has to do that, and finding people, on that same level can be tough, but like you kind of got to expect that though, like, and be aware of that, like, the CEOs, like, they're taking it that seriously.
But think about why the CEO is taking it that serious, because he has the most responsibility, right? So like when it comes to like leading a team, like I've learned through books and obviously through mentors too, that like, you have to, in order to grow, you have to let go. That I probably started getting more passionate for my job when I started getting more responsibility, learning new things. I said, all right, Davy, now you're the guy. You know what I mean? And again, people want that. I wanted that. I wanted a job that was going to be a pillar, that had stuff to bring to the table, that it seemed like, people want to be there. And that's the job I have now, and that's why I'm like part of the reason why I'm passionate is because of that, and like one of the books of leadership that I read like a year or two ago literally said like the rule of thumb is like 80%. Like if someone does something as good as you, like 80%
as well,
give it away. And the guy was like, I would say even 50% give it away, depending on what it is. Because like that's how people start to get passionate. They only get passionate through ownership, you know what I mean? And so like and people will take it serious for a shorter duration of time because of the responsibility that they have. But they have greater responsibility, the greater the time they got to put in, the more time they become serious about it, And like, do I take my job serious 24/7 like the CEO? Probably not. But there's 3 hours in the morning that I just grind it out, and then I take my lunch, and then in the afternoon there's another 3 hours where I grind it out, 3 or 4 hours,
Mm.
Yeah, and that's how it is, because based on the responsibility I have and the time that I have. But the CEO, I mean, like, he has his thoughts and hands in every single pot in the company, and every single department, and every single person, and all these teams that he has to check on. So that's why it's like, when you're a leader and you're looking at these people, like, it's easy to look at the people that you're working with and being like, man, no one's taking it as serious as me. There's even that one guy, never brings his notes. Like, come on. But it's just like, no, all these people deep down inside want to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be that person that's taken serious. They want to be that person that feels like they can say their ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that we will see that materialize in people that, are on our teams or anything is giving them stuff to do, and saying, like, I trust you.
Right.
And if you fail, man, hey, man, it's on me. It's not on you. And if you succeed, man, it's all on you, bro. It's not on me. It's because of you. And having that, like, mentality with the team. And I'll never forget, like, with the team that I lead at church, it was a whole big event, biggest event that we had that year. And I was like, hey, guys, I'm just going to focus on this specific area. Everything else is on you guys, all right? And I trust you guys. But that means that any questions that you may have, I'm not going to answer. And it was the toughest thing I've ever done in terms of leadership. Like, I was like...
Was this like an exercise you kind of did for yourself?
For yourself, but it was greater for them. You know what I mean? Because I knew that because, you've been in situations like that where someone asks you a question and he's like, I know you know the answer to it.
Right, or I know you could find it very easily.
Yeah. And, and as a person on the other side, you never realize that. You really never realize, like, oh, I could do this on my own,
right.
until the person that's over you, like, is just, like, pushing you to do it. Like, no, you got it. And it was like just, I'll never forget one question was like, all right, we got the pizza. We got the food. Check that off the box. Yeah. And I was like, good job, guys. Now, how's the pizza getting here? And they were like, oh, my God, who's picking up this? Oh, my God, it's going to get cold. Please, Lord, please help. And it was like, I remember when I asked that question, they all looked at me to wait to answer. And, that's type of stuff, like, I kind of don't like, because I'd rather be, like, collaborative and, like, everyone's bringing something, everyone's talking, whatever. Right. And I just stood there silent, like, I'm not going to answer it, guys. You got us. You got this. You got this. And it literally was like a minute later, or an awkward moment later of silence. And then someone was like, what about this? Yes, we got it. All right, check it off the box. Yay. And it's just like, now, and then when the whole event happened, it was very successful. And I literally said, guys, this is on you. You pulled this off. You pulled this off. Think about this area. You did that. Think about this area. You got that. Yo, you don't ever bring your notebook, but guess who solved the pizza situation? It was you, dog. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, like, the next time we have an event, they know they could do this. Oh, I've done this before, And it's like now with those same people, those same leaders now, it's like teaching them that, hey, if someone does on your team something as good as you, give it away, guys. You want to grow your team? You want to grow your specific area? Give away your responsibility to the people on your team because they want to be like you. They want to be the person that wants to bring something to the table, wants to be a pillar in the team. And you just got to trust them, And you got to be careful that the way you do it, Because for some of them, I see, like, they just like, all right, here you go. And, like, they just walk away. And it's like, hey, man, you got to communicate. You got to talk to them and, like, teach them. You can't just drop it on them. And for others, like, they just hover over them like a mom or something. Like no, don't. And it's like, oh, don't do that. Like, it's okay for them to fail. Like, if they fail, I'm not gonna be mad. You shouldn't be mad. They're trying. This is their first time. And it's like when you design like an atmosphere like that, there's so much growth that will happen. Because now everyone feels like, hey, this is room for me to grow here. But when there's no opportunities.
Right. Yeah. I think having like a challenging environment like is good. And like I'm someone who tends to like, if I'm not being challenged or have like the next like goalpost in mind, then I'll kind of like, I'm kind of bored and looking around for things to do. But I've been both that person. I've been the person that like hovers too much. I feel like in the beginning I was like very much on top of the team, like, you know, to the point where they would just be like, give me some space. Like they wanted the autonomy, you know, and I really wanted like, I want this to be the best thing ever, you know, and I was like micromanaging it and trying to get the results that I wanted that were probably more realistic on a timeline of like 1 to 2 years, 1 to 18 months, something like that. I wanted them like within the next few months. So I wasn't given enough time to like see those actual results. So I was like so heavily like involved. But then I've also been the person too, where I feel like I'm more of that now, where I'm just like very hands off, where it's just like, you guys have been doing this long enough. Like you guys should know.
Yeah.
And if you guys do fail, well, then it's just like, you know what? Why did it fail?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, you're not, yeah, you might be great at doing X, Y, Z, but like, you know, these other planning pieces, you know, were in place.
Yeah.
And does like failure like highlight that more? Does like the pain of failure highlight that responsibility to like kind of kick in for the next time around? Where it's just like, man, I don't want that to happen again. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of where I'm at now, where it's just like, if I'm just totally hands off, you know, I know there's going to be mistakes made along the way, and then we discuss what those mistakes are and why they happened, because I think a friend of mine mentioned this. She's like very much like a rescuing leader, so it's like when I start to see things going wrong, I'll like jump in to like, you know, because I don't.
That's a good way to put it, to rescuing leader.
Yeah, where it's like I don't want to see the mission fail, or maybe it's like I don't want to see that person fail. I feel like in my situation, like, you know, I'm more like mission critical, because I feel like mission kind of affects the whole. So it's like I'm very much, I want to jump in. I don't want this thing to fail.
Yeah.
But I think to some degree, having those failures and allowing people to kind of feel that along the way can be, you know, the greatest teacher, you know?
Absolutely.
Where you can kind of like run yourself dry saying the same thing over and over. You got to take notes. You got to do this. You got to take notes. You got to do, like, you know? But it's just like, let that person fail one time, and then you'd be like, man, I got to take notes.
Yeah, because you know what's crazy is like, as bad as you don't want them to fail, they probably as equally or as more don't want to fail either.
Yeah.
Like, no way. Like, you know, and they don't, no one wants to be that guy that like makes that topples the whole like pyramid of cards. No one wants to be that guy. You know what I mean? But people don't realize that most mistakes won't take down the mission. It won't take down, you know, the team. It won't take down you, you know. It won't take down the person next to you. Like, people don't realize that, you know. And it's like, especially if you're the leader, you're like, man, but if that person makes that mistake,
right,
man, it's just going to ruin it. And the reality is, it's really not that bad, you know. And again, that's something that like ministry taught me, you know, the leaders that I was under. Like, hey, we're all problem solvers here. This is how you solve a problem, everyone. You minimize it, you solve it, and then you move on. There's no magic anything outside of that. The magic sauce is you minimize the problem, you know, and that's how these people learn, you know. That's literally how, and if you think about it, that's how you learned. That's how I learned.
Yeah.
You know, it was because I gotten many chances to fail and to succeed, and that's why I know what to do and what not to do. And the lack of experience, like, you know, people always, especially in jobs, seek experience, you know, but there's something special about homegrown experience, you know. Like, my company loves me now, and it's funny because they seen me in my engagement. Now they see me married. Now there's like, yo, is there kids coming? And I'm like, you better hold off, you know, and asking me those questions. But it's like, but they love me because, you know, not only the good attitude, but like, they love me because I'm homegrown. You know, they've seen how much I've grown in terms of my experience, in terms of my knowledge, in terms of bringing something to the table. And there's just something special about that. And not meaning that every single person on your team or in your business has to be like that. But like, you cannot be afraid to at least let 20% of the people that are in your business be like that. Whereas these are homegrown people, you know? And you'll see like, people will love probably the business and the team more, because like, man, like, I've grown so much now. I'm at this level or whatever, and now I can bring this to the table. Now I can help this person train. Like, I'm now training people at my job with some of the stuff that I know. even people that are in higher positions than me.
Hmm.
And I think to myself, like, how the heck did I get here? I still remember that cafeteria scene, sitting down. You know what I mean? Like, thinking to myself, like, what am I going to do? Like, how did I? And it was just because my boss didn't, let me, and Tunde didn't let me, like, be afraid of failing. I mean, sales is like you're failing all the time. You're failing all the time.
That's something that you can so easily see, because it's just tied to the number, so it's just like that number doesn't lie. That number is like clear as day for the most part, most of the time. So it's just like, can't change that. Like,
Yeah. But it's just like what this job has taught me was to see behind the numbers. And it's like, because there's so much data
right.
than just we didn't meet our goal. There's so much data in there that's teaching us how to one day meet our goal. And I think that was like, when I finally realized that, that's when I was like, hey, man, I'm okay with. One of the qualifications in sales is no. That's a qualified lead right there. Hey, Sean, I've been trying to call you for months, man. And no, this person has no idea that, like, man, if you just say yes, I'm going to get this payout, and it's going to be so good for my family. And they go, nah, man, I'm good. And they click on you. That's a good thing in sales. That's like, hey, man, that person is a qualified lead. It's a disqualified lead. So now you know you're that person or that business or that company. There's a no, and you don't got to waste your time no more. And you could focus your efforts on this company that's looking hot, or this business that's looking hot, or this person that looks like they're about to be your champion.
Right.
And you should smile and continue dialing. At first people will say that, and I'm like, you crazy. And I'm like, one of the first calls that I had, I said, hi, I'm looking to, I'll never forget the name because I thought the name was sick. Kathleen McQueen. That was her name. I'm looking to speak with Kathleen McQueen, and someone answered, a man's voice, Kathleen's dead. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for you. I was like, almost like trying to have a moment with him, pray for him, cry with him, and he just clicks on me. And like my boss was like, you got your first one, huh? Make sure you look up the obituary in the county to make sure that you didn't get played. Looked up her obituary, man. Kathleen McQueen, man. Like,
she's dead?
Yeah, 2019. It's crazy, but like that's just the nature of like the business. Like, you're always gonna get a no, man, and that's okay. And like I literally had this conversation today with a new VP of sales on my job, right? And he's asking me and all this stuff, and he's like, you know what the difference is, Davy, between the guy that meets his quota and the guy that doesn't? Is that the guy that does is like at least 1 hour per day, just making calls, just used to the no's, just to get that one yes. 100 no's on the phone just to get that one yes. And he's like, and the person that's scared of the phones, no matter what level that you are in sales, no matter if you're a BDR, if you're a regional sales manager, he's like, the difference is the person that at least puts an hour in of making calls, or the person that is like, no, I'm putting 4 hours, like whatever the number is, the amount of time. But the main point is that that's the difference is there's people that are afraid of the no's, and there's people that are able to embrace the no's. And the people that are able to embrace the no's are more likely to receive a yes, and the people that are scared of the no's are more likely to not receive that yes that they're looking for.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, I mean, that was like my whole business when I first started. I was doing sales, which I had admittedly never really done outside of like Best Buy, selling cameras and that kind of thing. But
you sold cameras.
Yeah, I was in the camera department at Best Buy. But yeah, it was a lot of rejection, like in sales, and it does compound on you. So it's like if you kind of let it take you down, it can, it's just
never
like,
let it, man. Don't let it get to you.
You start getting a conversation going and things are going well and you think this person's going to book and then you get ghosted. And then, that happens.
Being ghosted sucks.
Yeah.
But what happens if that person says, hey, man, no thank you? You're like, sucks, but you're like, at least I know.
Right.
Man, those leads that are ghosted, man, those are the most annoying ones.
Yeah.
They really are. And, it's like, the no's are also different. There's some people that say no. I love those people that just say N-O, no, or no thank you. Mm-hmm. It's like, you didn't waste any ounce of my time. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
I'll unsubscribe you. No worries, bro. I might even leave them like a heart note. You know what I mean? If I could. And then there's people that are like, you effing cockroach. Go back to where you came from. Go back to hell. And they're like coming at me, and I'm like, wow. Like, a simple no would have sufficed. Like, you wasted all your time. Like,
Yeah.
like I've gotten some emails, man, that you wouldn't believe. Calling cockroach, saying I'm one big cesspool of, the word. And I'm like, a 4-letter word. I'm like, wow. Like, I can't believe how triggered you got. All you just have to say is no, and I would have left you alone for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life. One of the last ones was like this guy telling me to have like basically a career in sales. And that in the beginning he said no, and at the end he was like, and again, the answer is no. And I'm like, and it literally was like three pages long if I printed that out. And I just wanted to like say back to him, like, man, in all these years of sales, like, you should have known, man. Just a simple N-O would have sufficed. Like, you know what I mean? And like, it's all, looking back now, it's all jokes, with inside jokes with my boss and the team. But like, in those early days, man, it was rough.
Well, I think like that's a nice part about the job, is like kind of developing your own like resilience to that, and just even to which I'm noticing it lately, like how a bad customer experience, like in a customer coming at me in the beginning, was like emotionally upsetting, like 2 months, like, just be like, oh, this is terrible, and now it's just like, yeah, that happens. Like, how can we figure it out? How can we like fix the situation? Sometimes you want to justify yourself too and like be right, and it's just like, no, we know we did what we said we were going to do, and it's really good. I know the times that we do mess up and that requires a little bit more, but what about when you are right? It's just like, yeah, you could try to justify yourself, drag the customer through the mud, get your point across, but at the end of the day, it's just like, how much time and energy do you want to further sink into this customer or this client?
Right.
Hey, how can we get this to go away? At that point, it's almost just like, we'll save money. Is like, as quick as we can rectify this, like, we're gonna save money and hopefully like save some skin as far as like reputation.
Yeah.
But
and all that too, right? Like, there's more value in the company and in the team if not just one person has that tough skin, but many have that tough skin.
Right.
Or are used to that.
We had this conversation the other day in a morning meeting, and I kind of brought it up, and it's just like, I've been down there, and like I've kind of like learned these things, and I was just like, guys, this is gonna happen this year. A lot of emails I go direct to whatever department is kind of handling whatever, and it's like, I'm thinking like, man, they are going to be experiencing that, and I know how it can kind of like hijack you emotionally. And a call came in like that today, and one of our shooters picked it up, and client was like super unhappy. We gave her exactly what she selected on a proposal, but she's like, I thought there was gonna be so much more.
Wow.
Well, what gave you that idea? Like, it's literally listed. It's an itemized list. And the shooter was like frazzled, like threw me. Oh, that was.
I haven't heard that word in a while.
Yeah.
Frazzled.
And it's just like, yeah, I remember being there, and even till I still kind of like felt, and it's just like, which way are we gonna go? Like, what direction are we gonna take this? So,
but isn't it also interesting, like, seeing a person that's on your team going through a moment that you've been through, and you're just like looking at them like you got this, man. Like, just keep pushing through. You got this.
Yeah, that's essentially what I said. I was like, you can't let the water in the boat kind of thing, because it will take you down. It will take you down fast.
Yeah.
It's not even your department to really worry about. So it's just like, she called you because you had her number and she's had a good experience with you so far. And send it over to customer service and have them deal with it. But it kind of goes back to that, they're starting to experience, and they're going to be the ones getting those emails and affected by those emails.
Right.
And I feel like those emails can, like, it's like one bad report feels like, or one unhappy customer feels like everyone's unhappy.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just like, having a mentor to kind of be like, hey, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Like, we can figure this out. How do we get them,
Right. Because when they first experienced that, I don't know if you ever seen Infinity War, the Avengers, when Thanos grabs the moon and punches Iron Man with it. It's like, that's what one bad email feels like.
Yeah.
That's what one no feels like. It's like Thanos grabbing that moon and slapping you across the face, and you're like, ah. But then a mentor comes in and it's like, man, that's like a little fly. Like, just dust it off, bro, and keep it moving.
Right. Yeah. And it does feel like that sometimes.
I said that was a pretty good metaphor.
That was actually good. That's actually how it feels like sometimes. I mean, it's maybe a little dramatic, but.
Hey, man, when that dude called me a cockroach, I was like, I'm getting fired today.
Yeah, because it, like, you think you did something, like, horrible. You think you did something wrong.
Yeah. But it is interesting being, like, you know, seeing someone on your team go through that, and then you, like, looking and, like, being like, man, like, you got this. Like, you just push through a little bit. Like, just seeing them go through something that you went through, and it's like you're kind of seeing them, like, grow in front of you. Or, like, seeing, like, this is a moment that has a chance for you to grow. And it's like, I love those moments. If I could see those moments every day, I would. You know? And, like, yeah, I love those moments, bro.
I think, too, like, what's been interesting for me is, like, I don't want to say this the right way, but, like, you had mentioned, like, you know, we've gotten to, like, a certain place in 5 years, which we never thought we'd be at. But it's like you still, like, even in the beginning, like, we're just starting out, right? We see ourselves as just kind of small and, you know, still doing well. I mean, we did, like, a good amount, like, even our first year. But as you grow, it just kind of, it does get, like, a little bit familiar, and you tend to, like, forget, you know, like, how far, you know, we've actually come and, like, how much we've, like, gone through. Yeah, it's just kind of.
I think you have to learn how to step back, and maybe I do it too much to step back and be like, "Whoa, this is looking good." But, like, I think you have to learn to do that because, like I said, bro, like, you know, and I didn't realize how one of a kind your business is, you know, until we got surrounded by businesses that were like it, and I was in that meeting like a fly on the wall, hearing all these other people ask these questions, like, how do I hire someone? How do I bring another shooter onto my business? How do I change? That great question was, how do I get the business being from just my face to, like, just the brand itself? And I'm looking, and it was a FaceTime, like, you saw everyone's face, and I'm looking at you just sitting in your car like this, like, yo, like, Sean's already done all of that. And, like, you know, one of my friends mentioned, like, your company making X amount of money per year, or in 2018 and 2019, and, like, all these other people that had businesses like you that were around him were just, like, dumbfounded, like, huh? What do you mean he's making that X amount of, how did he even do that? And it's just like, you know, you don't realize until, like, yeah, because we're next to you, you know what I mean? We're familiar with you, but when you take a step back and look at it, like, well, this is nuts, bro. Like, business is one of a kind. My man's is one of a kind. Sean, you're one of a kind, bro.
I appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say. That's why I brought you on this podcast today.
Yeah, listen, I just want to let the record show that, like, he didn't pay. He is not paying me. You know what I mean? We're about to get to Lula's, you know, after this, and he wants me to pay for him. I mean,
I want those shrimp tacos.
I'm telling you, get the shrimp nachos. It'll change your life.
I've never had nachos from there. But
best nachos in the whole world, hands down.
Yeah, that very problem was a huge problem for me. I remember having that problem. And it's just like, how do I transition the business from, like, every time they wanted me? So
how long ago was that, like, that problem?
That was probably first and second year. Probably even bled into the third year. I think as fast as you can get your name off, like, the email chain, and kind of be, you know, either have a salesperson or a customer service person where they're the first point of contact. As soon as you're no longer the first point of contact, and get some other names in reviews, then, like, you're good for the most part. But we still get people like, I want the owner.
And if you want the owner, that's for extra money, baby.
It's more. You gotta
money,
pay
baby. But you know what's crazy? Like, you kind of want to be like the director in the movie that, like, has himself in the movie and nobody knows, you know? And you showed me, like, a video of, like, for CIC or whatever, and I was just like, people watching this will probably never even know, like, that's the owner of this business right here. Like,
yeah, that was an interesting thing. I think they just didn't want to hire talent, so it's just like, yeah, I'll be the guy.
Okay. You looked good on it, by the way.
I always wanted to like act in something, so it was like my first.
You are very dramatic. Cameo. I will say that you are a very emotional person.
Yeah, I appreciate that too.
That's probably why the business is so good, man. You get the emotions of the wedding day.
Never thought about it like that. I was
roasting you, huh? You thought I was.
Thought about it like that.
You know, my boss knows my wife's name, like nickname.
Yeah.
And he only references her by that nickname, like not Jenny or your
So he
wife.
calls her baby cakes too?
Yeah. He's like, hey, Davy, how you doing? Hey, man, how's baby cakes doing too? Taking care of her, bro? I'm like, at first it was weird, but at this point it's like, you know, if he calls her Jenny, it's like, what are you doing, man? Don't call her Jenny. It's like he gave me a wedding gift and it literally said to Davy and baby cakes. And the way he says it too, he goes, baby cakes. Our boss is funny, man. He's a funny guy.
That's awesome.
You know what he's been telling me lately?
What's
He's been going, hey, are we going to be best friends or what, Davy, huh? And then just like lets it be dead silence. Waits for me to answer. He literally has been saying this like line to me like once, like every other day, man. Be like, yeah, and like a serious meeting, and then just at the end, be like, hey, Davey, we're gonna be best friends or what, huh? It's like looking me dead in my eye, and I'm like, yeah, man, yeah, of course, like, and I'm like, this is crazy, man. How did I get to this point where my boss wants to be like friends with me? Like it's like weird, but it's awesome at the same time.
Are you guys gonna be best friends?
Honestly, I hope so, man. You know, he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, too, like, he's just hilarious, man. But sometimes, like, there was one time I roasted him in front of the new hire. And, like, he didn't reference, I thought, I said, you know, you throw a joke out there. You ever threw a joke on the wall and, like, just see how it sticks? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'd be doing that. I'm just like, I'm just going to throw this out there, see what happens. You know, sometimes it fails. Sometimes it's like, people are like, what's wrong with you? And other times people laugh and cry and laughing, you know. And I said that, and I was like, am I going to have a job tomorrow? Like that type of thing. And then like yesterday, something I said like a week or two ago, he finally references and was like, you got some nerve. He's like, you got some balls. You know that? How dare you? How dare you say that to me in front of the new hire? Wow. He's like, I played it off nicely though, huh? And he like started laughing, but I thought he was gonna come out my neck.
I like that he waited 2 weeks. He just stewed about it.
Yeah. And the joke was like he has a receding hairline, and sometimes he sprays in his hairline. And I said something like, "Oh, the hairline looks swell today, boss," or something like that. Like it's not sweating off like normally. And he like is about to get a procedure where they like take some hair from the back and put it in the front. Yeah. And I think I referenced that as well. And he's just like, played it off. And he goes, what's wrong with you? You know I'm afraid of that procedure. You know I'm holding it off. He's funny. He's like, but I always got to keep that forehead fresh. That's what he says. My boss is literally like a boss from a movie. Like, that's literally how he is. Like, he's over the top. Like, says one-liners all the time. Always thinks I'm not working, which is always funny to me. Like, he'll call me on, like, the computer, and, like, he says the same dang thing. Here we go, finally. Like, I'll answer it, like, on the second ring. He'd be like, he finally answers, right, come on. Open the office door, shut it, sit down. Crack open the laptop. He's like, I can't even answer you unless I have the laptop open. He's like, crack open the laptop, grab your phone, do their first dial. Yep. Put in your password, sit down. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. He's finally working. And I'm like, how you doing, man?
I feel like this sounds like my dad. It sounds like he could call me like any point in the day. He's like, are you sleeping?
Absolutely, he's like that, man. And then, like, he brags, too, like, that he started his day before you. But it's like, but that's because your kids wake up at 6 a.m., dog. And they wake you up, man. It's just mad funny. He's like, you know, when I started my day, 6 a.m., been out here grinding. I'm like, man, you were grinding because your kids woke you up. Stop it. Stop it. He's just funny, man. He once called me with his shirt off, like running like full force on the treadmill.
You told me that. Yeah, you were saying that the other day.
But just for the listeners here, like that's what my boss is like, sweating. Hey, oh, there he is, finally woke up. Look what I've been doing since 6 a.m. in the morning. Hey, man, some call it Monday, but I call it my day. And I'm just like, I'm just trying to get my coffee, trying to, you know what I mean? Like, wow.
Definitely a sales guy.
He definitely is a sales guy. He definitely is.
I remember one of my teachers at ALC was saying two things that I really remember. One was that if you show up on time and have a good attitude, you're like 10 steps in front of the other guy.
Absolutely. For sure.
Show up and have a good attitude. Show up on time, have a good attitude.
Yeah. I would do that with the job I have now in the beginning. I would literally like open up the office, and some days I would be the one to close the office. And like people would like be like, "Bro, what are you doing?" Because they're familiarized with the job, with their position.
Right.
They're like, "Davy, you always seem to open and close the office, man." And I was a new guy, you know, and like, and I would do that and just always smile. Hey, what's going on? Hey, everyone, how? And like now everyone expects that, and it literally again something that's biblical. The Bible says that like Daniel was in a land, Babylon, in front of leaders who believed in different gods and everything, you know, but he was elevated just because he had a good spirit. Yeah. And it's so true. You will be 10, 15, 20, 100 steps ahead if you just show up on time and you're like, hey, what's going on?
You'd be surprised. Like in the morning, like you kind of walk in and people kind of have their attitudes, right? Like you wait there, it's early or whatever, and it's just like a long day or whatever. Maybe they don't want to be there, but like, you know, I wouldn't say like don't carry that in with you. You know, it's like you getting nice, like being greeted by someone who's kind of like groggy, disgruntled. You know, it's like, but being greeted by someone that's just like, hey, how's it going? Like, it's like, oh, hey, like, you know, someone's in a good mood. That's nice. You know. I feel like it goes a long way.
It really does. And people have no idea. When I had that job working at the school, there was a person who was one of my favorite coworkers. She really was. And she also was like kind of like the team lead without having the title. You know, if a situation with a kid got really serious, she was always normally the one to shut it down. If the crowd of kids got too wild, she was, again, the one to always shut it down. Knew the kids so well. She knew how to work them and everything. But when all these promotions would come, she would never get it. And it was just because she had literally like, you know, some days it was like the worst attitude ever, you know. And it was like worst attitude with her coworkers, even though her coworkers like liked working with her. Worst attitude with her higher ups, most importantly, and it was like anytime they had to open a position, and she just never got it. You know, she always had an excuse, and I felt for her because it's always tough to realize that. But it's just like, dang, if you just realized, like, if you just came here with a good attitude, they would have paid you massive amounts of money.
Yeah, it's like in value. If you have someone that people like, you know, they feel like you're approachable, especially like if you're in leadership, you know, and they can go to you. You know, you show up on time, even like staying late, you know, it's just like, if you're in a small place and I feel like it doesn't take much to be recognized.
No.
Like you don't have to go that much further to be like, wow, like, man, that person's like always staying late or putting in extra time. Like that person never is going to let a project go late. That person always has a good attitude. You can count on that person. Person's taking notes all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's so easy, too, to get wrapped up in the culture that's around you. You know, it's just like, oh, no one else is taking notes. I'm not going to take notes. Or like, everybody kind of shows up like whatever. Like, you know, everybody else doesn't really have that great. It's like, wow, okay, whatever. Like, to be that one person, I would say even more so, like in that environment. Because it's just like, yo, this is like counterculture right here. Smiling is counterculture.
You know what's crazy is that, like, again, my mentors told me that. But what's funny about my mentors is they, especially when it came to that, they weren't showing up early opening. But they were like, but you got to do it because you're the new guy. you got to do because you're just starting.
Right.
You got to be the best dressed. I know there's some people coming here dressed that way, but you got to. And
Right.
they would come in late. I'll
Right.
never forget my boss would ask me. He'd be like, "Hey, Davy, come with me, man. I'm leaving." And it's like 2 p.m. I'm like, "Let's go." And then one day he just randomly, like, while he was lecturing me, was like, "And I'm also trying to figure out when you're going to stop leaving early with me, man. You never figured out this was a test?"
Wow.
In my mind, I'm like, Davy loves leaving early.
Wow.
I wonder what's going to happen when I'm not here.
Wow.
And I was just like, "You cruel man." I was, oh, wow.
Oh.
I was like, "You cruel man. Like, come on, man. Like, even though I'm not that person, you know?"
Yeah.
And it's so funny because when he would ask me again, I would just look at him in that. He's like, "Davey, come on, man. Leaving. It's 3 p.m. You want to come with me?" And I would look him in the eye and be like, "No, sir." And he'd be like, "Good mans. Good mans. Make sure
That's
you stay here till
crazy.
6 p.m. I'm out." Yeah. Or he would take me out to like lunch for like 2-3 hours and then leave right after lunch and be like, "All right, Davey, make sure you do what you got to do before you leave. Peace out." I'm like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
But it taught me, man. It really did. I'll never forget this one time. Again, shouts to Tunde, but I'm about to expose him. Just fair warning. So, Tunde, if you're listening or watching this, just skip this part. So, I'm about to expose Tunde real quick. I'm going to expose Olatunde Unuyingbo. Had to say his full name just real quick.
Out of respect.
So, my first day at the job, he goes, "Hey, Davey, I'm going to drive you in, bud. I'm going to drive you in." Picks me up from my house. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. I'm running a little late. You know, I woke up a little late, whatever." And he comes in. He's like, "All right, hey, let's stop to get some breakfast and everything." We get breakfast. I was supposed to be there, I think, at like 8 or something, or maybe 9. And I ended up getting there like 9:30, 9:45. Heavy traffic as well. So heading to like a job in Boston. And kind of get, lectured a little bit at the end of the day. Not too heavy, but my boss being like, "Hey, man, just make sure you showed up on time." And I'm like, "Hey, man, like, Tunde brought me, And he's like, "Yeah, just make sure you show up on time." And I'm like, "Is not people not hearing me? Like, I didn't drive myself to work today." And I think that day also, my boss was like, "Hey, it's 3 p.m. Leave with me, man." I'm like, "Tunde, come out soon." Like, leave it. And then later in the car ride, Tunde's like shaking his head. He's like, "How could you show up late on your first day?" As he's like driving me home. I'm like, "Tunde, you must be out of your God-given mind." Like, I'm thinking this in my head because I'm not like, again, I still like just met Tunde. And I'm like, this guy must be out of his God-given mind. Like, you're the one that drove me. Your idea was to go get breakfast. Like, come on. And I told him, like, "But bro, like, you drove me." He's like, "Nah, man. You should have been on me to be like, yo, you better show up. If you're not here at this time, I'm driving myself." And I'm like, "I had no gas money. Like, come on, bro." He's like, "Nah, it doesn't matter, Davey." And he used that line, "You don't want it, man. You would have said no to breakfast if you really wanted it." And I'm like, "Huh, bro? Like, come on." And then that was the last time, like, he ever drove me. And, like, I just remember, like, again, like, I could have easily blown up, had a bad attitude with my boss, had a bad attitude with Tunde. But I was just like, sometimes you got to learn how to take body shots. That was a body shot for sure. Unfair. Still unfair, Tunde. But, hey, it taught me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I this is something I had to like train myself in doing. And now I like say it to like my employees where it's just like, you can't have excuses and results.
True.
So it's like you have to decide what you want, And people think there are some excuses that are acceptable. Like, well, it's traffic. Why are we late? There's traffic. There's always traffic.
But there's always a way to beat traffic.
Traffic exists. Are you planning your route ahead of time?
Yep.
Are you, making sure, you got to plan that there's always going to be traffic, So plan to be here 15 minutes early. What's wrong with that? But I just hear it all the time. It's just like excuses just kind of like, it's like the natural way of like thinking. You want to like excuse yourself out of responsibility. And I find like sometimes too, if someone drops the ball and then they don't take 100% ownership of it, to me, what I realized lately is like that communicates to me, you can count on this happening again.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I never like to leave a meeting, like if I have to like have a conversation about something where it's just like, I need to hear like, no excuses. This is why it happened. It's on me. and here's how, this is why it's never going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, okay, I like have some faith that like this isn't going to happen again.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's just kind of like human nature.
Yeah. And it's very humbling not to have an excuse, you know, and think about that situation, valid excuses. But I was just like, but it's true. At the end of the day, it's on me. Like, my first day should have never left my first day in the hands of Tunde.
It should have been like,
me.
you know, some form of anxiety too. Like, oh, it's my first day. Like, what are we doing? But I can see that you kind of trusted him.
Yeah.
He's your friend. He's your mentor.
I did. Also, I was like, I don't want to drive 90 minutes to Boston in traffic, you know. But it was just like, again, how do I beat traffic? I guess I'll just wake up early, and that's why I would go in at like 7:30 a.m. and I would open up, because I knew like if I was here 5 minutes later on the road or 10 minutes later, I would get here 40 minutes later, you know. And I was just like, I'd just rather just drive on the road when there's less traffic. So I'll wake up early to beat the traffic and get there on time. No worries, you know. And on a side note, there was a dude that had all the experience with me at this job. Totally different position, though. All the experience, all the head knowledge. My mans would show up at like 10 a.m. and he'll be the last one to show up in the office and be the first one to leave. I just couldn't believe it. Even Tunde, man, would be dumbfounded by this guy. Like, how? Like, just looking at my boss, like, how does he get away with it? You know what I mean? And like,
is he still there?
He is.
Wow.
But it's just like, you know, people look at him as like, is he actually working? Is he actually going to show up? Is he? And we'll see how long he lasts, you know? And it's just crazy. Like, and obviously it's harder, again, to be in his shoes and to recognize that. My boss says all the time, can't protect him anymore. I don't know, you know?
Right.
And it's just like, bro, like, stop being the last. You rather be that guy to be first one in and last one to leave than to be the last one in and the first one to leave. Just never looks good. Even if you're producing everything in the world, just never looks good.
Well, it seems like last thoughts that you might have for, you know, anyone out, and like I said earlier, in your position, or
yeah. Find that mentor in your life that you're looking for in that specific niche, and when you go for it, be ready to fail 1,000 times. There was this kid in high school that literally was like, I'm gonna make beats, and there's 1,000 kids in high schools that say that, but he was willing to make 2,000 beats, and it's just like, hey man, and he's like making it right now. One of his songs being one of the most used in TikTok, working with celebrities now, celebrities using his songs. It's like, there's no surprise by that, because this kid's made over 2,500 beats.
Yeah, actually, one of the guys that works here mentioned him. He's like, yeah, he'd always like hit me up on Snap, like, check out my new beat, and he's like, honestly, I would like roast him, be like, I don't want to listen to your music, and just like make fun of him. And now it's just like that kind of perseverance, like, you know, just continually doing it.
Yeah.
Putting yourself out there.
I remember
rejection.
I wasn't cool with him like in high school, right? So, but he was cool with some of the people in my circle. And literally like 3 years out of high school, they're like, hey, come to his house. I go to their house, and I'm like, oh, bro, he's still making beats? I'm like, wow. Like, I thought you were one of I'm like, how many beats have you made? And he was like, 800. Jeez. I was like, what the heck, 800? And it went from I had zero respect to 100,000 respect for him, because it's like, I know no one else in my life that has made that many beats.
Yeah.
And then I saw him again, asked him again, like, how many beats you make? He said, I lost count after 2,000, man. I'm just still grinding, though.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And again, type of person that wakes up early, leaves the studio late. Oh, is this studio like $100,000? No, his studio is literally in his basement, makeshift. You know what I mean? It's just like, yo, he's just nonstop. And people don't realize, like, you got to fall in love with the details. If I was to leave someone with the last thing, it was that. Fall in love with the little details. The little details is what is going to make you, like, separate yourself from the pack. If you're in sales, fall in love with the cold calling. Never fall out of love with that. And I think that's something that Kobe said, rest in peace. If you fall in love with the details, out in love with the little disciplines, then that's the red flag that's going to say, like, hey, man, you might not make it. or hey man, you don't really want it,
Hmm.
you know. But if you do, and you just keep on doing it day in and day out, like it's nothing. Bringing that notebook, you know, making that cold call, reaching out to people to find a mentor. It's not an easy thing to do, but if you keep reaching out, you'll see you're gonna make it because you really want it.
Yeah, that's good. I love that, being to the details, and having a mentor. Like, we had some new guys, new hire recently, and great guy. He's doing great, but in the beginning, it was just like I really had to like push him. I don't know if he has a mentor, but I really had to push him like a couple things. Just like, hey man, like these couple things could like ruin you, and you have so much potential. And so I had to be like extra hard on him, because I didn't know if anyone else was like, kind of giving him that, like, hey, here's how it is.
And now he's killing it.
And he's someone too that's just like, hey, you're starting to get married, you got other things to think about. Like, you start thinking about things differently.
Yeah. It's crazy. When I got into sales, there was only a couple people in my head from my friend group that I thought like, if they ever got into sales, they would probably kill it, and he was one of them. He was one of them.
He was telling me like, he's like, I think about it, like I think about this job like as like a video game, and I'm like, that's a really interesting way to look at things.
It sounds like childish, but it's not.
Yeah, but no, I was just like, the way he was connecting the dots, and I had him. We were kind of building out like this makeshift CRM through Sheets, and just ton of data, like ton of formulas, ton of cells. It was a lot of, and I kind of got it going, but then I was just like, okay, you need to like multiply all these formulas like across the board and kind of, and I was just like, I've tried handing things over to a few people. Not everybody can get it, but he was just like, no, I got it. Like, it's just like simple for him. And
she handed that to me. I would be like, huh?
I was impressed. I was really impressed. And you could tell he liked doing it. It was a problem to solve, and it was just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, because he's into things that are strategic too, like in games.
He's also really good with people.
Hey man, you should play Warzone because you're playing with people, you're playing against people, or you have a team. I think it's like Warzone has like, it's like this huge map, 128 people or 150 people drop in, and it's like teams of 4. So you got to really know how to communicate. And every game I've ever been with Raul, no matter how good all these other players are, he's always the one like leading the group. Hey, what are you doing? Don't just randomly shoot. Or hey, go on this side. I'll attack here. Like, it's pretty impressive, man. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
you should definitely try it out, man. Like Warzone, like, man, like as much as that game gets me heated, but like when you're all clicking on all cylinders, like, it's a great time. It's a great time.
Yeah, I've never been too much into gaming, but maybe one day.
It's like, it's fun, like, yeah, but with that game, like, it almost forces you to be a competitive gamer, like, because like, the first few times that you drop in, like, you only have one life, so like you die, you get sent to like a thing that if you win that 1v1 with some random dude, like you can come back into the map, and your friends don't have to buy you back. They can buy other weapons and other things that will make it easier for you to win or whatever. But like, it like forces you to be strategic. Like, so like the first couple times that we're playing rounds, like it's like funny, like, oh my god, I got sniped, or like there's some hilarious stuff. But then you get to a point where it's like, all right guys, let's get serious, let's be strategic, let's get this round. And it's like, especially like the map, like there's like a red zone that comes in, and it gets smaller and smaller as the time duration goes by, forcing you to encounter more and more people.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, I'll never forget the first time. Like I played with a couple of my friends to get me my first win. Bro, it was like intense because I didn't know that's how the game was. And it's like, you start like in the beginning, like just talking about life, like almost like having your own mini podcast with your friends. So when the circle gets smaller and smaller, you just stop talking because it's like, I got to hear, like, because the game too, you could hear people's footsteps.
Yeah.
If the person is in a little bit in the red zone, they're trying to run out of it, like they start coughing, and you could hear their person coughing, and it's like,
so the intensity just like ramps up.
It ramps up heavy. It's crazy. It is crazy. But then when you win, you're like, yeah, let's go. I've never played a game. No other game has gotten me like that. You know what I mean? Especially like working with friends together like that. Like I'm telling you, man, it's a crazy time.
Yeah, I think we're wired like that. Like, you know, you want to win. It's almost like survival in a way.
It's almost, again, like what we talked about in the beginning. Everyone's seeking that. Everyone's seeking community. You know, and I don't think, like you said this earlier, like it's young people. Sorry again for the burps, guys. We only got sparkling water here.
Sparkling water, Blue Drop. It's actually Blue Drop water too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's the Blue Drop goodness. Shout outs to them. Shouts out to them. Bubbly. But it's like even older people, no matter what area of life you're in, you know, age, you're always going to seek that community. You know, that's why people are into sports. You know, you find out that a person is into the same team that you're into. What happens? Like the guard drops down. You start talking. You start being like, you know, there's some formality when you barely know the person, but because you love the Celtics, you know, or you're into the same guitar, or you're into watches, you know, it's like even though we're not the same age or we don't come from the same place, like all the walls come down, you know, and people are always seeking that, you know, and that's why it's like there's something special about always having a team or a business that people are in, you know, and like you just have to trust that, like, and not trust, but just know, like, you know, they want to be a part of this, you know. And it's easy to sniff out when they're not, because you could easily see that. But it's harder to notice that, like, oh, they really do. They really are trying. You know, you really have to look to, like, notice that stuff.
Yeah, I think Bryson's been, like, really kind of impressing that on me, that consultant we've been working with, where it's just, like, you know, people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Where he's just like, man, I don't like pay my people like crazy. Like, I'm not doing like crazy. Like, and he's like, you know, but we'll go out. He's like, people want to be part of something like that's bigger than themselves. Like, and you know, we'll go out. We'll take a vacation together. We'll do like brainstorming together. It's nuts. And it's just like, you know, he's like, I'd rather give someone an experience. I'm like, that's pretty good. Pretty good feedback.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, but a lot of leaders aren't willing to do that. I've seen it many a times. It's like you don't want to get close to the people that are with you every week at all. But like, you know, I've had people on my team that maybe have gone to my house a little too much. But it's like, you know, they look at me as more than just a leader, like a fam. You know what I mean? And I love that, you know. But it's like, again, that's like, all that's easier said than done. Like what happens when you're a little bit tired? What happens when you need some time by yourself? Like obviously, if find that time to rest. But like when you sacrifice that little bit of extra, and you're like, hey man, come over to my house. Hey man, let's get a bite. Hey man, let's chill. Hey man, let's play some Warzone. You know, it's like, and all of a sudden, it's like the memories hold the heart. You know, it's like kind of like that saying. I don't know if that is a saying, but maybe I just made it up.
I think so.
The memories hold the heart. You know, I'll never forget in high school, this dude and I did not like each other until the high school, like, had an event, and we ended up being on the same, like, tube. We went water tubing together. That was such a crazy memory that we had together. Became best friends right after that.
I found that, too. Like, people that I've, like, been introduced to, and I like, you know, even maybe like hated them off the bat, like I don't like this person. Those are usually the people that like I ended up becoming like best friends with.
Crazy.
My friend Joe in high school, did not like him at all. He's my best friend through all of high school.
Wow. What's his name?
Joe Casey.
Shout outs to you, Joe. Joe Casey. Shouts to you, Joe.
Great guy.
I bet, man.
Yeah.
Because, man, you know, like, there's not a lot of people that want to deal with you for that long. I'm not saying like you, like just like, you know, if you're listening, like you, like me, like, you know what I mean? That's why I like, you know, I love my wife, because like, dang, you deal with me? And she says the same thing, like, I love you, like, you deal with me, you know? And it's like, you know, when you're there for people too, as someone that's, you know, the head of the gang or the leader, is like, that speaks volumes to them, you know? A lot of people are like, how do I get younger people on my team? It's like, well, go to their game. Do you know when their birthday is? Have you ever gotten them anything? Have you ever even paid for a 4-for-4 meal for them? Well, then, if the answer is no to all of that, then that's why you have no young people on your team. Like it's just as simple as that. And it's not just like young people. If you just want anyone to be on your team, like you just have to put yourself out there. And when they see that you're human, they see that your team is human, or that there's some type of, family community aspect to it, then that's when they want to join the team, or go to that church or be a part of that business, Yeah. So, but if there's none of that, then it's like, nah, man, stay away from that business.
It's huge. Like, because, thinking back on it too, like one of our first shooters, probably our very first shooter, outside of maybe a group of friends, I met her at a photography meeting, and I was like, yeah, I really like your work. And we went out and did an engagement shoot together, grabbed some food, and it was just like, kind of became friends. She joined the team, and like that was it, and she's been with us ever since. But it wasn't about money. Like it just seemed like, hey, like these people seem cool, I want to be part of this team. Yeah
this is what it's all about. I think like if you, to keep yourself in check as like a leader, you have to remember those moments when it was you. You know what I mean? One of the things that keeps me like going in terms of like leadership, especially in ministry in the church, and I've told my team this, like I think of the leaders that impacted me, and I think about the mentors that I had. You know what I mean? And I think like there was so much riches in the nuggets that they gave me, nuggets of wisdom, and I literally think it's unfair for me not to do that.
Right.
Like, forget the calling that I have, this big old calling. Forget the dream that God gave. Forget all this other stuff. It really drives me at the end of the day, besides, like, Jesus, is, man, my youth leader was really there for me when I was in middle school. Hey, that teacher in high school was like, he really, like, would sit down with me for hours. Like, and he didn't have to. He didn't have to like listen out and hear my questions about the Bible and what does it mean to be like a man of God. He didn't have to say yes to that, but he did. And like that drives me to like, and if I don't do that, that literally makes me feel like, man, like what are you doing, Davy? Like you're being unfair to the next generation or the next people.
I appreciate is I was actually thinking about this on the ride in to work this morning. Is he was my, I think, 10th grade English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And he had gone through, he was in the station fire. I'm not sure if you remember that. Happened in Warwick where like
it was a club?
It was a club caught
yeah.
on fire and people couldn't get out. And they were basically like clawing over each other at the door and like melting. And he was discovered under this body of like melted people. And so he lived, but he
that's crazy.
Was out of school for like 3 to 6 months, burns, like he had a leather jacket, the zipper like melted into his flesh. And he came back and he was like he had gone through something very traumatic, but he had like sat down. He's just like, I know you guys have a lot of questions about what had happened. He's like, I'm just going to open it up. Whatever question you guys have, let's just get them out on the table, and I'm going to answer them as honestly as I can. And he just let everybody like ask him questions about it, was like totally transparent. And he ended it with, he's like, you're going to go to more funerals than weddings. And it was just like, I don't know, it really like, I don't remember a lot from high school, but I remember that day, I remember that moment, and I remember him kind of giving us that like piece of wisdom. And it's just like, that kind of like transparency and just like that kind of knowledge like came from a real place, and he had to go through something to acquire that. And that cost him a lot to get that. And he was willing to give that to us, to a group of, 30 students that were, 15, 16 years old.
That's crazy.
It was really powerful, like, moment, like, for me. And I don't know. I think about it from time to time, and yeah, it's so it's like, acquiring those things that can really shape your perspective, that give you perspective in life, and then being willing to like share those with like other people.
That's not easy at all, and it's like one of your first thoughts when you think back to that is like, yo, you didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
You didn't have to, but
you didn't have to relive that experience or like, go through that. And someone had actually asked him, because he had mentioned that he was with his brother or he was with his friend. And someone actually had the courage to be like, did your friend make it out? And he was like, no.
Crazy. That's nuts, man.
Yeah.
You know why you remember that too is because like he was being transparent,
right?
And like I feel like a lot of, because I saw this at the school, you knew the teachers that were willing to be transparent with these kids,
right?
And the teachers that were not, and it was sad because like, well, why does that class act up with you? Because they don't like you, because they don't know you,
Yeah.
And why does they favor this teacher? Is because the teacher is not afraid to stop class for a second and open up and tell them a story or give them a piece of wisdom that comes straight from the heart.
Those are always the best times, like I remember in school, where it's like we shifted from the lesson and there was like some kind of organic chemistry that took place, organic
Absolutely.
Conversation,
yeah.
And everybody kind of gets into it. And they're going back and forth, and you can tell like the teachers between like, hey, they're learning something here, they're engaging right now. Should I stop it? Or like, we got to get back on the lesson. And that's where like true knowledge is kind of like. Those
moments were best.
Yeah. That's where like that true knowledge comes, like that, that discussion and like, hearing like what's really on people's minds,
Yep.
Being willing to like listen, invite the conversation, not be afraid of it, and, be okay with it. I mean, that's always when I was just like, yes, like I'm learning something right now. Because I don't think people are against like school or education or developing. Like, I feel like they want all those things. Sometimes like, too much structure can kind of almost work against that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like, you really have to find not that balance, but that rhythm of when to bring in the structure, when it's to be a little loosey-goosey, because like I think about it even for like my team, like, there's some of them that, not some, I mean, I think about it for my team, like, imagine if I just always had a structured meeting. Like, no one would ever want to come to these Tuesday night meetings.
Right.
But once in a while, let's go bowling, guys. Or, hey, like, let's just watch, like, a movie together.
Yeah.
Or, hey, like, just come over to my house this week.
That's really good. I actually saw that, like, when you guys were going out for youth, and you guys were going bowling, and I was just like, I got to do that. I got to do something like that, We do, like, a Monday night debrief from the Sunday before. And I'm very much like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not really feeling this meeting, but I'm like, no, consistency is important. Like if I just say, if I say, no, we're not going to do it this week, one time that kind of opens the door, like, we don't have to do it this week, and then it kind of falls off. And they're not always like life-changing meetings or anything like that, but it's just like, hey, we met, we talked, what's good, what's bad, a little bit of improvement. I don't want to like waste anybody's time, be there for too long. But I did see that on your stories, and I was just like, that's, I got to do that. Like, that's something I'm thinking I'm going to need to incorporate that here. And then also, like, the church, it shouldn't just always be, like, about the...
Yeah. I always think, like, it's better, I mean, in a wise way, but, like, you always got to make sure that you're making memories, that breathes life into the community, you know what I mean? Like... seeing a person that you didn't know, but then you had a crazy moment, and you're like, yo, bro, when you said that at that moment, like, yo, you're a genius, bro. That was so funny. And, like, or like, hey, we just show up here every day, barely know anyone. But, like, when you go out, when you hang out, you start having stories, you start having fun. That makes the whole atmosphere better. It really does. And it makes the community better. It makes it more feel like what Jesus said to the disciples, like looking around like, you're not my servants, guys. You're my friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You kind of want to. Why did he say that to him? Was Jesus being like so like super deep? I mean, sure, but probably like, guys, I spent 3 years of my life with you guys. Remember this memory? Remember that healing that I did? Yo, like I was spitting the guy's eye. Like
That
it
was
was
weird.
nuts.
I don't know what I was doing, but
Yeah, like why did I decide to do that? I don't know.
why did I
Like,
do that?
and they all like probably laughed and like he probably just looked around and was like, "You guys are just my friends, man. I knew what was coming." Like Jesus said the greatest love is when a friend gives his life for another friend. And he did that for his friends, you know? So it's just like, you know, he knew the power of friendship. And like that's kind of how
that's
like
good.
like I respect like friendship so much, you know. Like I think like it's not. I think it's one of the most important relationships that you can have in your life. Is a good, you know, grade A premium friendship.
Yeah.
You know, FDA certified, baby.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just, and honestly, like, you know, I thank God for some of my friends. I have a friendship that's been, you know, over 20 years, 22 years. You know, I have other two friendships that I have is, you know, that are like 16, 15. Some that a lot that actually are coming on 10 years. It's like, you know, it's like crazy the references that we could say, you know. Why is an inside joke an inside joke? It's because it's a memory. You know what I mean? You had to be there.
It's true. I feel like that's like true currency too, you know, like friends and you know, making memories, things like that. Like it's cool to, like, you know, having a successful business, or like, you know, it is like, you know, people say like it does get like empty, you know, where it's just like it's great accomplishing things and kind of see, I'm very much about like, you know, what can we build? How big can we build it? You know, and going for it and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, it's not everything.
It's not everything, you know. And there's just some things in life that are everything. It's like, man, it's hard to find a good friend.
Yeah.
It really is. It's hard to find a good mentor. I mean, it's hard to find a good wife.
Yeah. Friendship currency, as you're saying, I was saying, you know, everything that's like, yeah, everything is like, that's like worth having is rare. I feel like all the good things are rare.
Yeah. And, you know, and people out there may be surprised of how non-materialistic it is. Like some of those things that are like very rare. Like, and I didn't realize how rare some of my friendships was until I was like getting older and meeting people like, they were like, what? Like, you're still friends? Like, even people from like in middle school, finding out I'm still friends with like the dudes I was cool with in middle school, and they're like, huh? Like, you still hang out with them? It's like, yeah, you know, been to all their weddings, seen them get married. Some of them have kids. Yeah, it's weird to see all that, but like, hey, man, like, it's crazy that I was there, but it's also crazy to see how they've grown. You know, like, we're not the same dudes from middle school. Thank God we've grown.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's rich right there. You know, and then also seeing them have their own businesses, and then seeing some like fail again and again and again, and then become successful, and it's awesome, man. You know, and it's like also like for a lot of them, they're like also Christian, and also in the church, so to be able to like pray with each other, seeing all those prayers become answered, you know, and it's like that's heavy, man. Some heavy stuff right there, like in the best of ways, you know. And I honestly tell parents this all the time, right? Because me and Jenny work with a lot of preteens and teenagers and everything, and we love it. And their parent, you know, some parents come up like, how do I have a kid? You know, my kid, like, you know, I don't know, you know, how to. I'm just trying to get them connected. I'm, you know, like, can they become like you one day or something like that? And I'm just like, honestly, I'm here because like my parents prayed, the church, leaders and mentors, and then sometimes I'd be like, yo, I think they need some good friends. I think a great friend is just as important as a great mentor or leader in your life. How did I get married? Part of that was because I had a group of like 15, 20 guys that were on the same mission. You know, I want to save myself to marriage. I want to find the girl. I want to do it right. I want to be there for her. I want to be in the church, and I credit my friends. If I didn't have them, who knows the mistakes I would have made. There's three things that save you from making mistakes. One, and it all has to do with relationship. And one is relationship with God. Two is relationship with your friends. And three, relationship with leaders around you or mentors, If you can make sure all those things are right, man, you're going to be living a successful, good life for sure.
Yeah. To that point with the parents, there is I feel like parents are anxious, when they start to see their kids get to probably any milestone, but they're anxious, I feel like, at that age, because, the kid is probably starting to, grow up a little bit, and that's probably the time where it's just they're trying to get out from their parents,
And a lot of the things that they're exploring is more physical and more adult, And the parents are someone help my kid.
Yeah.
And the kid is smarter, the kids are, the more they grow up, especially in the day and age we live in, they're getting smart real fast.
Yeah.
Kids are way smarter than I was at their age. That's for dang sure. And I know that because just look at the culture, the things culturally that they know, or things that are sexual that they know. They're catching on to this stuff at 5th grade, 4th grade level now.
Right.
Rather than 9th grade. Maybe when you were in high school. And then middle school when I was younger. Now it's at literally that type of age. And parents don't realize that. They think it's still when they were younger.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the mistake that they make, where it's no, you may need to have some real conversations sooner than later.
Yeah. But I think that's a good point. It's that relationship that kind of keeps you in line.
Mm-hmm.
Even back to that verse you were saying, plans fail for a lack of counsel.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I've during this last season of prayer and fasting, was something I was just I need to get more mentors. I know we kind of keep circling back in this conversation, but I hired a business consultant, 2 business consultants, and I've almost viewed you as a business consultant lately, kind of taking a look at the, what's going on.
You may have heard me just, take a deep breath. That's because, man, that really hit the heart. Thanks, man. I feel that.
Of course.
I did not pay Sean to say that. I just want to let everyone know.
And you're also starting a consultant business.
Wow. Hey, haven't even signed up for the LLC yet, but okay, let's go. Shouts to my business. That's nuts.
But yeah, that, and then I put together a board of advisors that we meet quarterly, which I got to set that up. It's a reminder. But
that's really smart, man.
Yeah.
That's so smart. That's really smart. I think about this, and what's crazy is the main stories that people like to share in the Bible and to preach about. It amazes me how many times that people don't share the story either before or after that main story. You think about Solomon being so wise. You ever heard the story of his son?
No.
Literally his son. Think about this. Majority of the Proverbs were written by Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
And these were all letters to his son. I think his son, I'm going to butcher his name, but it was Rehoboth or something like that.
Huh.
And I know that's a town in somewhere in New England or Rhode Island. But it almost begins like that. Those names are long in the Old Testament, but Rehoboam something, that's his name, Rehomi or whatever. And Solomon's writing these letters. These letters are we read them as a random, not random, but these, this is a book in the Bible.
Wisdom,
yeah, snippets. But to this kid, this is a letter directed to me by my dad. And one of those was, in the midst of many counselors is wisdom. And another one is, hey, if you are in the midst of many mockers, many times in Proverbs it says that's not going to lead to a good path.
Yeah.
And his son becomes king one day. And instead of listening to his father's counselors, he ignores all of them. He goes away from them to decide something for 2 or 3 days. And when he comes, what's the thing to decide was, hey, now that your dad is gone, like, will you lighten our taxes, or will you give us more? And the people were crying for less taxes. And his friends were mocking the people and saying, "You're king, bro. Don't listen to these." And his advisors, his dad's advisors, were saying, "Hey, man, like, maybe you should listen to them." He spends 2 days away from them, and all this time he's with his friends who are mocking, and the people that were asking for less taxes. He comes back and goes, "Hey, we're gonna double your taxes, triple them even," you know. And just like that, the whole kingdom becomes divided, and it's a civil war, and it never comes back together again. So your dad writing you these letters, giving you all the answers, while he was reigning, the kingdom was as best it's ever been. Its borders were stretched out and extended to the greatest it ever will be, had the most peacefulness, and just like that.
Yeah.
You know, one decision. And I think about that a lot because it resonates with me, just because of, like, well, everything my dad has done and the amount of times I haven't listened to him. You know what I mean? I think about that story a lot, man. You know, and people, again, like, yo, if you just let the Bible give you some context to some of these big old stories, whether you read, like, how the story become, like, read the beginning, or not the beginning, but before the beginning of the story, and read the aftermath of the story, you know? Everyone loves to talk about Solomon, wisest king, but, like, his son could be you know, is in the argument for the most foolish king ever, you know?
Wow.
And it's like, yo, Proverbs is a book that we read, but literally Proverbs was a book written for him, and he still didn't listen to it. And it's just like, man, it's, like, really deep, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that could have, you know, our fathers too are probably like the first model, you know, going into life, for good or bad. But that was something that, like, I saw, like, my father definitely modeled for me. He was a business owner as well, a small business owner. He really modeled, I would say, like, excellence. You know, he was a super hard worker. I feel like that's so true. Like, you know, especially, like, you know, fathers are probably like the first mentor that we have in life.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and they're modeling certain things. Maybe that's a story for another time. We'll have to get you back on the podcast.
Yeah, man, we'll love it. We'll love it.
As we're gonna wrap and get some food. But thank you so much for coming on and speaking, and looking forward to kind of seeing your growth too as you continue on in this job, and you know, some other things that you got planned. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
Likewise, brother. Likewise.
All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in for another episode of Moving the Mountain, a Creative Leadership Podcast. If you have any questions, make sure you subscribe, and you can fill out some questions and comments, whatever you got. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.